The story of Sallman'S Boy Christ, an interpretation of Sallman'S famous painting by Howard W. Ellis, was published in 1945. Behold, the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are ye not much better than they? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you, that even Solomon, in all his glory, was not arrayed like one of these. Jesus spoke these words, and they were recorded in Matthew 6:26, 28, and 29. Warner Sallman has captured the imagination of the world with his religious paintings. A lesser artist might have been content simply to have copied this boy Christ from a more famous head of Christ, but Sallman has created a distinctive picture. His is a real boy with tousled head and pet lamb clasped firmly in his strong, boyish hands. This canvas, painted in the first 7 months of 1944, is a companion picture to Sallman's head of Christ, Gethsemane, Christ at heart's door, and the Lord is my shepherd. Here in this colorful canvas, we are given a preview of the mature ministry of Jesus. Sallman not only portrays the boy Jesus, but what is equally important, he lays before us his Father's word, which Jesus loved, and in which he learned life's great lessons. The artist intended this picture as a teaching medium for children, that they may share in the spiritual awakening of the hidden years of Nazareth. He has painted a composite picture into which he draws as many illustrations as possible from the teachings of Jesus. Then he assembles, arranges, and emphasizes this lesson material that it may speak to us as it spoke to Jesus. Parents and children alike will find new meaning in this picture every time it appears, for it is brimming with beauty and with truth. Sallman pictures Jesus as an observant, intelligent boy who loves the out of doors. From Bethlehem to Calvary, he was in closest touch with nature. The truth is that Jesus, like most people of Bible lands, spent much time out of doors. His home was a one-roomed, crowded shelter, little used during the long summer months. His father's workshop, in contrast, was an open structure exposed to the weather, and the surrounding countryside with its fields and vineyards was right at his doorstep. He is pictured sitting on a hill slope just outside Nazareth, alone in the silence of early morning. All around him is the beauty of his Father's world. In the upper left corner of the picture is Nazareth, a city set on a hill which cannot be hid, according to Matthew 5:14. The streets are narrow and cluttered, the houses small and crowded one upon another. No wonder men asked, can any good thing come out of Nazareth? In John 1:46. From the valley, Nazareth stretches up the sides of a cup-like ridge. And by going to the top of the ridge, one may have an excellent view of the plain of Esdraelon to the south, and snow-capped Mount Hermon on the north. Jesus spent his life among these hills. Early in his ministry, he returned to his home town of Nazareth, where he had grown up with the village boys and labored with primitive tools in the carpenter's shop. When invited to speak in the synagogue services, he turned to Isaiah's great prophecy of the suffering Messiah and identified himself with the long-expected one who should come with healing and good tidings to the poor. Opening the book, Jesus read, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord." And this was recorded in Isaiah 61:1 and spoken of in Luke 4:18 and 19. But Nazareth would not accept him. He was thrust out of the city and led to the brow of a hill on which the city was built, that he might cast himself down headlong. But he, passing through the midst of them, went his way. Jesus knew that the eyes of God are on even the least of of his creatures, no matter what came. He was not afraid, had not seen the birds as they built their nests. And behold the fowls of the air, for they sow neither do they reap nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Again, from Matthew 6 and verse 26. How cheaply men sold sparrows in the marketplace. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a farthing? Was asked in Matthew 10:29. A farthing is less than 4 cents, yet a sparrow could not fall to the ground without the Father's knowledge. And how wonderfully God clothes the flower. Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow, Matthew 6:28. If the Heavenly Father so cares for the birds, and so clothes the flowers, how much more will he watch with loving care over his needy children, of which I am one? The yellow blossoms of the mustard tree are to be seen in the tangled mass of growth in the lower right-hand corner of the picture. Jesus sees how the smallest seed grows to be the largest of plants and develops into a tree so that wild birds come and roost in its branches. So it is with the kingdom. The kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed. Remember that, Matthew 13:31. From small beginnings in Galilee, the kingdom grows, gradually reaching vast proportions until it reaches out to all the earth. The hillside grape vineyard with the purple clusters above his head teach that life is meant to bear fruit. Ye shall know them by their fruits, Matthew 7:16. The boy Jesus observed the vine dresser clipping the leafy branches so that only the strong, vigorous vine remained. And the result, more fruit. I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. And every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth it, that it may bring forth more fruit. From John 15:1 and 2. We are the branches, Christ is the vine, our Father is the caretaker. If we remain united to Christ and his words abide in our hearts, then our lives will be fruitful and our Heavenly Father is honored. The growing grain and the bristling thorns tangled together gave Jesus his parable. Behold, the sower went forth to sow, and when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Some fell upon stony places where they had not much earth, and forthwith they sprung up, because they had no deepness of earth. When the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. But others fell into good ground, and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, and some 60-fold, and some 30-fold, according to Matthew 13:3-8. Jesus knows the wastefulness and disappointments of the sowing, the failure of good seed along the pathway, the loss through the seeds being trodden underfoot or carried away by wild birds. He knows that even the best of seed can be choked out by thorns. But he puts his faith in those who hear the message of the kingdom and heed it, for they shall inherit the earth. Across the valley a flock of sheep are scattered on the hills, as sheep that have no shepherd, 2 Chronicles 18:16. The lamb which he clutches so firmly in his arms may have wandered from the flock to the place where this little carpenter boy has found it. He is coming to realize what it means to be the good shepherd. If the shepherd cares enough for one sheep to search for it until dawn in the hills, how much farther God will go to bring back that lost boy. As the Father knoweth me, even so I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have which are not of this fold, and them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. John 10:15 and 16. Notice the rugged hills of the Palestinian country. Always hills are symbolic. Generations come and go, years tumble into centuries, but always there are the hills, steadfast and immovable. The men of the Bible were highlanders, all of them, from Abraham to Jesus. The psalmist declared, I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made the heaven and earth. Psalm 121, 1 and 2. Jesus left the crowded village to seek the comfort, the rest, and the power that he found among the hills. The dawning search of Jesus for his place in the world is shown here in this picture. As alone among the hills, he communes with his Father. When he goes back unto the city, it is to think and live and study and learn until his Father calls him to his great work. The hart, or deer as we know it, is standing in the distance near the waterfall, which pours down from the spring in the hillside. So great is the eager thirst for God in this countenance of the youthful Christ, that he might be repeating the words of the 42nd Psalm, as the hart panteth away the water brook, so panteth my soul after thee, O God. By showing the boy Jesus in his Father's world, Sallman is revealing the source in his brilliant stories, which Christ used in his preaching and his conversation. Nature is the great book of God from which Jesus learned. For of thorns men do not gather figs, Luke 6:4. The gospel pages are bright with the colorful illustrations Jesus draws from his keen observations of his Father's world. The city set on a hill which cannot be hid, the lilies which neither toil nor spin, yet are arrayed like kings, the tiny mustard seed, small but growing, the togetherness of the vine and the branches, the difficulties of the growing grain, the sheep without a good shepherd. These are the lessons Jesus learns as a youth, as he listens for his Father's voice. And he hears the voice in the common things of life. This is my Father's world, and to my listening ears all nature sings, and round me rings the music of the spheres. This is my Father's world, oh rest me in the thought of rocks and trees, of skies and seas, his hand the wonders wrought. This is my Father's world, the birds their carols raise, the morning light, the lily white, declare their Maker's praise. This is my Father's world, he shines in all that's fair. In the rustling grass I hear him pass, he speaks to me everywhere. This is my Father's world, oh let me ne'er forget, that though the wrong seems oft so strong, this is my Father's world, the battle is not done, Jesus who died shall be satisfied, and earth and heaven be one. The shadow of the cross falls upon the hillside behind Jesus, the shadow of death which lies upon his pathway even in his boyhood, is a prophecy and a promise. The lamb which was once the sacrificial animal is in his arms. Jesus is not yet ready to take his place as the good shepherd who leads the sheep in green pastures beside still waters. Someday this strong Son of God will himself be the lamb that is slain. The cross is a symbol of his person and death. A gleaming white light gathers around his head, sublime, illuminating in the darkness of the cross, a symbol of his victory over death. This colorful canvas is a reminder that if we would see the significance of Calvary, we must walk through Galilee. The message of this beautiful picture of the boy Jesus Christ is that throughout his lifetime, Jesus was in closest touch with his Father's world. His boyhood was spent in the open fields among the mountains and the skies and seas. He was baptized in the Jordan River on the summons of a voice crying in the wilderness. Under the blazing desert sun, he fought out his great temptation. Out into the Judean hills, away from the milling crowds, he went for prayer in the early morning hours. His pulpit was the good earth, and the big open sky his canopy. Once pressed by the mob, he put out in a boat from the lakeshore to tell his story of the seed, the sower, and the soil. His greatest sermon was preached from one of these mountainsides that he loved so well. His greatest decision was made in the solitude of the garden in the shadow of the olive trees. High on a rocky skull-shaped hill, he was crucified on a cross hewn from a tree, and they buried him at last in the quiet beauty of a garden. But the tomb could not keep him. Wherever men respond to truth and beauty and goodness, the Son of God enters in.